In April 2026, a luxury cruise ship set sail from the port city of Ushuaia, Argentina, charting a course toward Antarctica and the remote islands of the South Atlantic. The first few days of the voyage are festive and calm. Passengers mingle and enjoy the itinerary. But 5 days into the journey, a 70-year-old Dutch passenger visits the ship's doctor, complaining of a sudden fever, a severe headache, and mild diarrhea. Within 48 hours, his condition deteriorates. He begins gasping for air, struggling against an intense, unexplainable respiratory failure. On April 11th, just over a week after the ship left port, the man dies abruptly in his cabin. The crew and the remaining passengers have no idea what caused the death. They continue socializing, unaware that this isolated medical emergency is the ignition point for a larger crisis. Nearly 2 weeks later, the ship docks at the remote island of St. Helena. The deceased man's wife disembarks with his body to fly home, but as she waits for her flight in South Africa, she suddenly collapses in the airport and dies the following day. Back on the cruise ship, stranded out at sea, a terrifying chain reaction is underway. Several other passengers fall ill, and by early May, a second person is dead. The World Health Organization is alerted. They conduct emergency tests on the ship's isolated population and deliver a chilling diagnosis. The passengers are dying from Hantavirus. This chart shows the mortality rates of various pathogens, and Hantavirus towers above most. It carries a death rate of up to 50%. There is no vaccine, and there is no known cure. This diagnosis presents a biological contradiction. Hantavirus is known strictly as a rodent-borne illness, so how is it tearing through a human population trapped on a luxury ship miles away from land? To understand what is happening on that ship, we have to look back to the 1950s. During the Korean War, over 3,000 soldiers fell victim to a mysterious illness that doctors couldn't explain. The condition was hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, or HFRS. Infected soldiers suffered from intense fevers, internal bleeding, and total kidney failure. It took scientists nearly 30 years to find the source. The global carrier for this entire family of viruses is rodents. Different species of mice and rats carry different strains of the virus. They shed the pathogen in their droppings and urine. When those fluids dry out, the viral particles become airborne, and humans breathe them into their lungs. Because of this transmission cycle, virologists believed for decades that infection required direct proximity to rodents. A human-to-human outbreak on an immaculate cruise ship should have been impossible. That assumption was challenged in 1993 when a cluster of sudden deaths struck the Navajo Nation in the American Southwest. This outbreak revealed a second variant of the disease, Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, or HPS. HPS attacks the respiratory system. Rather than destroying the kidneys, this variant causes the victim's lungs to rapidly fill with fluid, leading to suffocation. Native elders pointed scientists toward an environmental catalyst. The region had recently experienced an unusually strong El Niño climate pattern, which dumped massive amounts of rainfall across the landscape. All that excess water triggered a massive, sudden overproduction of pine nuts, creating an enormous food supply on the forest floor. This food supply caused the local rodent population to explode. With thousands of extra mice scurrying into homes and storage areas, human exposure to the virus skyrocketed. The 1993 outbreak proved that hantavirus spikes are deeply intertwined with climate volatility and ecological chain reactions. But even with a climate trigger, the people dying on the cruise ship in 2026 were nowhere near a booming rodent population. The explanation comes from a different outbreak in southern Argentina in 1996. There, scientists discovered a mutation within the virus, known as the Andes strain. The Andes strain possesses a singular, dangerous ability that sets it apart from every other type of hantavirus. It can jump directly from one human to another. It doesn't spread through casual contact. It requires prolonged, close physical proximity and contact with bodily fluids, rather than just floating through the air. The ship's infection traces back to the initial Dutch couple. Days before boarding the vessel in Ushuaia, they took a birdwatching tour that led them straight through a rat-infested landfill. The confined, intimate environment of a luxury cruise provided the exact close contact conditions the Andes strain needed to jump from the couple to the other passengers. While it's natural to fear a new pandemic, Hantavirus will not sweep the globe the way COVID-19 or influenza did. Unlike those highly contagious airborne diseases, Hantavirus does not linger in the air or spread easily across large distances. This timeline illustrates a critical difference. While respiratory viruses can spread for weeks, the Andes strain has an exceptionally narrow transmission window. It is typically only contagious for a single day at the onset of symptoms. Because of this tiny window and the need for intimate contact, global lockdowns are unnecessary. Targeted isolation of the infected person is enough to stop the spread. Since modern medicine offers no vaccine or cure, the only true defense is proactive prevention at the source. You have to secure your home against rodents. Seal any structural gaps, secure your food sources, and eliminate anything that attracts mice into your living space. If you enter a high-risk area, like a storage shed or an old barn, you must wear personal protective equipment, including a high-quality N95 mask. If you have been potentially exposed, watch for early warning signs, sudden flu-like symptoms that rapidly escalate into shortness of breath. Hantavirus is a deadly, climate-amplified pathogen